Well, welcome back to another edition of 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse Halloween Extravaganza 2025. And to start out, give a shout out to my buddy Abdullah the Butcher, who was put in the hospital a couple of days ago with some serious health concerns, but he seems to be doing better right now, so big shout out to Abby. And on a sadder note, another wrestler, Mike Rotundo, was just put into hospice care. I don't know what the situation is, but Mike isn't doing too good. And you got to remember, too, that he lost his son last year, Bray Wyatt, to a massive heart attack. So it's not good for the Rotundo family, and my thoughts are with them at this stage of the game. But anyway, back to the horror films. Let's talk about zombies. Now, zombies back in the day weren't the flesh-eating, organ-ripping, limb-tearing creatures that they are today. As a matter of fact, they were pretty fucking boring, to be honest with you. When you go back to Revolt of the Zombies in the 30s with Dean Jagger, it seemed that they were zombifying dead bodies to fight in World War I. This is a recurring theme here, because the other zombie movie in the 30s was White Zombie with the incredible Bela Lugosi, and that was pretty good. But zombies just lumber around. The actual definition of a zombie back then was a reanimated corpse that was brought back to work in the sugarcane fields in Haiti and places like that. So we segue to the whole monogram situation right before and during World War II. If you remember Mad Maid Monster, the one with Glenn Strange, some scientist was trying to create a race of wolfmen to replace Nazi troops during World War II. That was the first one. So now, 1941, a monogram picture, King of the Zombies. A plane with 3 people in it, a pilot, a military attaché, and his assistant Jeff, played by Mantan Moreland, are flying over this island where they get a radio signal where they're forced to crash land because they're looking for another plane that disappeared carrying an admiral with secrets to help the invasion of, Normandy or whatever the fuck they were doing back then. So anyway, they crash land. They are welcomed into this house by this scientist played by, I guess it was Victor something or other. I don't remember. Henry Victor. He was in a bunch of these fucking things. But anyway, they asked if there's a transmitter on here, and they're told no. And Jeff, unfortunately, is regulated to stay with the servants' quarters, so he's down in the kitchen, and he's asking about this one girl that's down there that's pretty attractive about, what's going on, and she says, well, the zombies are out there, and all of a sudden these guys come marching in with this blank stare. So he has to stay down in the kitchen when he is attacked by 2 slow-moving zombies, and he runs back up to his friends. I don't want to stay down there, I want to stay here. So anyway, the whole thing is, it's a voodoo plot. This guy has the admiral. They've been hypnotizing him, trying to get the secrets out of him using the voodoo and stuff like that. There's a voodoo queen doing stuff. Anyway, the pilot winds up getting zombified, as does Jeff. But when Jeff is down marching around with the zombies, he sits down at dinner, and the girl starts putting a lot of salt in his food. And she goes, "You're a zombie, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." And she goes, "How's the food? A little salty." She goes, "Well, if you were a real zombie, you would have caved in, because in this film, salt kills zombies or something." So then he freaks out, going, "What am I doing here?" and runs out. So anyway, they've already turned the pilot, and they're going to try to get the information out of the admiral, when all of a sudden, the pilot listens to his buddies yelling at him and turns on the scientist, who shoots him a couple times, but basically good wins out. They get the admiral, they free him, they got rescued from the island, and in the end, Jeff gets the girl. Well, it's not a great movie, but the whole thing was, looking through it as the eyes of a kid, and God only knows how old I was, you maybe anywhere from 9 to 11 years old watching this stuff on, Channel 5. I watched it because of Mantan Moreland. To me, he was like Curly and the Three Stooges. He was funny as hell. And, people, go, well, the whole thing was racist, this and that. And the other thing back then, I said, how could it be racist when he was third billed? It was part of his nightclub act. He was doing stuff like this. I mean, The guy was third billed in basically a movie. And like I said, through the eyes of a kid, I didn't see color. I just saw a funny black guy, making jokes and basically making a movie that would be completely unwatchable without him watchable. So that was my opinion of the whole thing. So now we segue a couple years down the road to 1943. We're deep in World War II, and with Revenge of the Zombies. And Monogram had a name to put in this one, a resident mad scientist, John Carradine, who was actually a Nazi spy. And he's conducting experiments on the dead to bring them back to life so that the Fuhrer can have a zombie army. So his wife is actually one of the experiments, and she dies. So her brother, a lawyer, and Mantan Moreland show up again. And the brother switches identities with this investigator because they want to lure out what happened. They don't believe that her death was an accident or whatever happened. So Mantan is out there sitting in the car when one of the servants walks up to him and tells him, park the car and go to this quarters. And the guy goes, nice car. I used to have one when I was still alive, which freaks Mantan out and he takes off. So again, he's, in the kitchen with a hot chick who basically wants to get out of the whole situation because now they're in the Louisiana Bayou. So he's got this agent, but actually it's a double agent because this corpse keeps popping up and Mantan keeps finding him, the arm hanging out and shit, and then they move him. There's a German agent played by Bob Steele who basically was in Monogram's cowboy movies and became a fixture in the TV series F Troop for a couple seasons. So he's the German agent, but he's really a double agent. He killed the German agent, that's the corpse that's floating around, and is trying to figure out what the scientist is doing. So now the scientist is going to disassemble his lab, take his wife back to Germany to show how this works, but she's resisting. And in her resisting, she turns all the zombies against him. And basically, she marches him out into the swamp and embraces him, and they sink into the quicksand, and the threat is over. So that was the last of those zombie movies, because like I say, most a zombie would do is maybe try to strangle you and stuff like that. It sort of hit the skids after Night of the Living Dead when I guess somebody decided, hey, you know something? Ghouls aren't really marketable, but we can throw the whole flesh-eating deal onto the zombies. We can make some money. So that's what they did. But going back to the whole, Mantan thing, the guy was a good actor. He was great at what he did. And like I said, when you're a kid, you don't understand color. You don't understand prejudice unless you're taught prejudice. And to me, like I said, he was as funny as hell. He was as funny as Curly. And later on in life, I was talking to Sid Haig about this because Mantan was cast in Spider Baby, which was his last role, and Sid said the guy was just so fucking thrilled that somebody actually remembered him and would give him work. And, like I said, that was his last film. So then you go back to all the shit that's going on today with, the fucking hate and the bigotry and the prejudice coming out. And I got to go back to where I came from because, you go down to these grindhouses, even the Embassy Theater when you were a kid, the place on 42nd Street, inner cities, whatever, and you'd sit there with an audience of black folk, Hispanic folk, Asian folk, and all we were trying to do was enjoy a fucking movie. We wanted to escape the misery of our daily lives and find solace in these films. And, for 90 minutes or 4 hours or whatever, you could be a cowboy, you could be whatever. You could identify with the characters in these films. And it's just sad that, all this shit that's going on with this fucking bullshit today is just tearing us apart. But back then, we were all equal in the movie theaters. We were there for one reason, to escape and watch movies. And I just wish I could go back to that era because it was a lot safer, for lack of better words. I mean, it was dangerous in its own way, but not as dangerous as today. And, you sit with a bunch of fellow films fanatics and yell back to the screen, and that was a lot of fun. So I really miss that. So that's our show for today. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for tuning in. Tomorrow is Halloween, so we shall celebrate. So until then, stay safe, and we'll catch you on the flip side.